sit in front of us. We pray that you would fill them with help, with strength, with peace, and with wisdom. Lord, we're thankful we live in a nation where we can express ourselves and vote. We pray that you would give every one of them help and strength and peace. Thank you for your goodness to us. Thank you for the city of Westlake. I pray that you would be with the people who lead it. And we pray tonight that you would bring peace into this space. We thank you most of all for the peace that we have because of Christ. And we pray blessing on everything that's done here tonight. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pastor, thank you very much. It's good seeing you. Please rise and join me in the pledges. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic, nation, under God, indivisible, liberty. Texas pledge. Honor the Texas flag. Good afternoon, and thank you all for being here. I do apologize for the lack of seating. I know there are strong feelings about this project and legitimate concerns about power, water, noise, air quality, and impacts on neighboring communities. I also want to personally say that I recognize the stress and anxiety these issues have caused some of our residents and neighbors. I know this has affected people and families, and I do not dismiss those concerns. I also appreciate Fort Worth Mayor Mattie Parker's recent comments. All of this has been amplified by rapid technological change, partisan election battles, conflicting information, and uncertainty about AI's future. At the same time, data centers are critical to our future economy and national security. Westlake will comply with all applicable requirements established by Governor Abbott in the state of Texas, including any additional safeguards that are adopted. We feel this detailed development agreement discussed tonight will be part of the governor's audit review. Governor Abbott, sir, Texas needs a comprehensive statewide framework for data centers that protects our resources and residents while providing municipalities clear, consistent standards for responsible development. I also want to clear up a few issues. There's been a claim that Westlake blindsided Keller and did not communicate with the Keller officials. Hillwood met with Westlake and Keller leadership on December 10th, 2024, and discussed the details of this project. There have been a claim that at the Westlake Planning and Zoning meeting later that day, Mr. Eric Elrod with Hillwood stated, quote, just to be a good neighbor and explain to them what we think we're doing on the adjacent property line with them, I think we can say at the end of the meeting they were very pleased with what we're proposing. Those are his words, not mine. I know Elizabeth Campbell, the Star-Telegram, also published that article with a video last week. Now I understand that was 20 months ago and the political winds have clearly changed. Next, the property in question has been privately owned and designated for commercial and industrial development for nearly 3 decades. Westlake has consistently envisioned this corridor for commercial and industrial use. Our neighboring city of Keller, made different land use decisions on property within its jurisdiction. Keller exercised its authority to rezone property from commercial industrial to residential, including changes in 2006 and 2015. Those decisions allowed residential neighborhoods to develop adjacent to Westlake property that had long been designated for commercial and industrial development. Keller was well within its authority to make those decisions. But at the same time, those decisions created an important land use issue that exists today. Residential neighborhoods were developed next to property that Westlake had already planned for commercial and industrial uses. Specifically, the 15 homes at the lakes at Marshall Ridge was done without consultation of Westlake or a review of the existing zoning, and they did not include a buffer zone and approved residential platting all the way up the absolute city limit line, creating this land use issue. You can watch that video, May 11th, 2015, 2015 Keller City Council. And what was very disappointing in that meeting, not one person asked, what do you think Westlake, or one person asked, what do you think Westlake's going to do with that land? The developer said, I don't know, maybe an office building. Those facts matter, and the most important fact is this. The town council is not being asked to approve or deny whether this property can be used for a data center. That land use right already exists. The property has been designated for commercial industrial, as I said, for nearly 3 decades. And Westlake went through the formal public zoning and public hearing process in 1998 and 2025, and a data center was established as permitted use by right. Our responsibility now, tonight, is how this project is developed and how we protect our residents and our neighbors. That means strict, measurable, and enforceable standards for noise, water, power, admissions, landscaping, screening, our Westlake dark sky policies, infrastructure, and emergency operations, and holding the developer accountable. Our goal is straightforward: protect our residents and neighbors, respect existing property and zoning rights, and require this project to meet the exceptional high standards Westlake expects. Mr. Boyle, you have a statement, our town attorney.
I do indeed. Mayor and Council, this development agreement is being presented for consideration pursuant to Section 102.316 of the Town Code. The data center itself is a use allowed by right under the town's zoning ordinance, and the site plan for this case was given final approval with conditions by the Planning and Zoning Commission on August 4th. As presented, this development agreement meets all requirements under Section 102.316. With or without this development agreement, the data center can move forward. With or without this development agreement, the town is legally obligated to provide water and sewer service to this site. The development agreement itself includes the following requirements that are not otherwise strictly required and as such enhance the protections to both town and neighboring municipality residents. The developer under the development agreement must obtain and disclose a post-construction sound study to ensure compliance with all applicable standards. The development agreement requires the developer to provide a cooling system designed to achieve an annual water usage effectiveness not to exceed 0.25 liters per kilowatt hour as a long-term average, and to manage water consumption in compliance with all applicable state and federal standards. The developer is further required to fully fund improvements to the town's water pump station that will increase the daily pumping capacity by 2.5 million gallons a day. This improvement alone will produce an additional 1 million gallons a day of new capacity over and above the town's service obligations to the developer. The development agreement requires full compliance with the site plan as approved by the Commission, including the conditions that the Commission adopted therewith. Lastly, the agreement requires full compliance with the town's dark sky standards. Based on the fact that the development agreement fully conforms to all provisions of Town Code, there is no legal basis for denial. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Okay, we're going to get into citizen and public comments, and let me just put some ground rules. The town of Westlake is committed to conducting this meeting in a courteous, reasonable, and respectful manner. We recognize that this issue before us is important to each of you and our community, and there may be strongly held and differing views. Our goal is to provide everybody with fair opportunity to be heard while allowing the meeting to proceed in an orderly and productive manner. We will be respectful of your time and comments, and we ask everyone to extend the same courtesy and respect to one another and to this body. While a recognized speaker has the floor, we ask that all the other attendees listen without interruption, comments, or remarks of any kind. Please also refrain from shouting, applause, outburst, or any other disruption. These rules apply regardless of whether you agree or disagree with the speaker. Once you've completed your comments at the podium, your opportunity to speak is closed so that others may have the opportunity to be heard. We appreciate everybody's cooperation, and this is a lone warning that any person violating these rules be expelled from the meeting, and they must leave the premise. Thank you in advance for your cooperation and compliance to help us maintain a respectful environment in which all viewpoints can be heard. Just as a point of rule for Westlake, we had the option of limiting 15 minutes for any one subject, and we've waived that. We have, I think, 38 speakers, and we're going to listen to them all. So what I'll do is I'll call the first name, and then I'm going to call who's next up to kind of keep it moving. You will be limited to 3 minutes. You cannot defer your time to anybody else. One person has 3 minutes, and the next person has 3 minutes. So the first one is Ben Buckwalter Keller. Ben here? Chris Pennell from Keller. And Dana Suresh is up next.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Chris Pennell. I've been with Marshall Ridge resident for more than 16 years. The town of Westlake's plan to allow an AI data center within approximately 500 feet of our neighborhood took me and many of our neighbors completely by surprise. Like many Marshall Ridge residents, I'm deeply concerned about the potential health, environmental, and quality of life impacts that this project could bring. Those concerns include noise, air, light pollution, excessive water usage, environmental impacts, and potential decline of our property values. I ask each of you to put yourselves in our shoes. Would you want an AI data center built 500 feet from your neighborhood or your own home? Would you want this close to an elementary school that your kids or grandchildren attended? You have the authority to prevent that outcome here. You have the ability to say no, or at least the very least, table the vote. Table this process and ensure that Westlake and Keller residents who will be directly affected have a meaningful seat at the table. We were blindsided by how far this project has progressed before our community became aware of it. Even our former mayor had no idea that this project was becoming a reality. You do not have to approve AI data center simply because it was permitted by right. You still have a responsibility to consider whether placing a project of this magnitude this close to an established residential neighborhood is the right decision for our communities. Please give Keller residents who will live with the consequences of this decision the consideration, transparency, and opportunity to be heard that we deserve. Once a project of this scale is built, there is no going back. A rush decision today could have consequences for Marshall Ridge, Keller, and Westlake for decades to come. I respectfully ask that you pause this project, listen to the affected residents tonight, fully evaluate the impacts, and make a decision that you would feel comfortable living with if this data center was being built 500 feet from your own house. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dana Suresh and Michael Anderson next.
Good evening, Mayor and Town Council. My name is Dana Suresh, and I live in Granada in Westlake. I'm here regarding the Highway 377 Data Center Development Agreement. I'm not standing here tonight asking you to deny the project, because we all know that was beautifully orchestrated to ensure it couldn't be denied. Between the quiet text amendments and the by right zoning, the door to saving this land and the people living close to it was locked before the public even knew there was a door. You were always talking about being transparent, yet you were anything but transparent with this project. It was extremely well planned to protect the developer. Your actions have given Westlake a black eye, and I'm extremely disappointed in the way this entire project has been handled. Now I'm asking that you use that same rigorous, calculated precision to protect the human beings living right across the property line and to ensure our resources are also protected. Since your hands are tied on the existence of the data center, your hands are completely free to halt this agreement until we have the truth. Please do not accept this developer's self-serving in-house impact reports. You have the explicit power tonight to table this vote until independent third-party studies are conducted, funded entirely by the developer, and selected and overseen exclusively by the town of Westlake. It would also be nice to include Keller, since they stand to lose the most. We need independent engineering studies on low-frequency humming and directional sound travel toward Marshall Ridge. We need independent environmental studies on the local thermal heat island effect of 88 acres of data servers, and an independent audit of their actual impact on our water and power grid during the Texas heat wave. If this project is as safe and quiet as the developer claims, they should have no fear of independent verification. Major flags have been raised by your lack of transparency. Now is your chance to take a step in the right direction. The setup of this project may have been out of our hands, but the ink on the final contract is in yours. Please do not rubber stamp a corporate handout based on biased corporate data and the excitement of a big payout. Order independent studies, hold the line, and protect our town and the people around us. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Anderson and Kevin Myers.
Hello, my name is Mike Anderson. I am the Republican Precinct Chair for the Tarrant County Precinct of 3422, which includes that northwest corner of Keller, as well as the residents of Stagecoach Hills. in Westlake. So I represent your people too. As a veteran, I want to personally thank you for your 5K and 10K run this weekend. I really appreciate that, raising money for disabled vets. Also, as a veteran, I'm asking you to put your heart and your reputation where your money is. Writing a check is easy. Now support the many vets, able and disabled. There is a disabled vet right on the property line. And by not plopping down this monstrosity in our backyard, if you truly want to support the vets, don't just write checks, do something. As far as Governor Abbott's statement and meeting his things, his post on Facebook said, list of a lot of things to look at, and one of those highlighted many times, I'm sure you've seen it, is not in neighborhoods. And this is right up against a neighborhood. Now, I've got just a little bit of time left. I have a letter here from Stephen Thornton, who is a Westlake resident. He asked me to read it. I'm going to read parts of it because there's not enough time. He wants to point out the fact noise does not stay on a location. When it crosses the property boundaries, it violates other people's spaces and rights to quality living. He also states, with Westlake respecting a buffer of 3,600 feet from our residence, speaking as a Westlake resident, allowing 200 feet for the quote-unquote outsiders, revealing a callous characteristic. This will be permanently included in our town's description by others. They will not focus on our exceptional qualities and values, but acknowledge dismissive, selfish, arrogant, and hypocritical traits. We are at a pivotal point in our history to not let this manifest. There are $2.2 billion data centers about 3 miles from the site, and no one seems to mind. It was built away from a population in an area designated for such activity. Other data centers are offering benefits to the surrounding communities. This bodes the question, how do we benefit and how do our neighbors benefit? You benefit, we in Keller don't benefit at all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Kevin Myers. And Dr. Fay next.
Hey, Mayor and council members, appreciate you letting me come speak. My name's Colonel Kevin Myers, U.S. Army retired. I live at 517 Llano Court with my backyard about 500 yards from this data center you're wanting to build. So I'm just here to say I wish you would afford us the same standoff distance that you're going to afford the citizens of Westlake. I spent 30 plus years in the Army, disabled veteran, and myself and my spouse have concerns with quality of living with some medical conditions that I have and she has, for example. Our neighborhood is also 40% veteran owned, our one street neighborhood there. I know you've seen it on the map. I just saw that this past weekend, the city of Westlake, you are big supporters of veterans, had an event. Hillwood, I know here, has been a big supporter of veterans over the years. And what you're doing now could potentially harm the quality of life, the health, and the financial stability of, a number of veterans on our street. So I hope you will take that in consideration with this and stand down and relook some different planning options. So that's really all I have to say tonight. I wish you would take into consideration someone, who, and some others on my street that spent most of their life in service to this country, not for wealth or personal gain. Sure didn't make me wealthy, and I knew that from the get-go when I chose that career. But after 33 years in uniform from '89 to the summer of 2022, I'd hoped for, a nice house for my family and some peace finally, where I could just live the rest of my life quietly. And this data center is not going to afford that. So I wish you guys would align your actions with what you say and Hillwood says they're going to do when it comes to supporting us at this service. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr., I might be saying this wrong, Fey, F-E-Y-I, and from Keller, and then Jacob Merkel.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and thank you for this opportunity to hear from us. I live in 1736 Sterling Trace Drive, right there in Marshall Ridge. On July 29th of this year, something that had held communities together for decades was broken: community trust. The town of Westlake made a public announcement about a massive data center as part of its new development. The news was quickly met with outcry from Keller residents, Westlake residents, and North Texas, because right now, data center is a hot topic in our state. Questions began, and at this point, we still don't know the truth. There's different versions of stories from Westlake, from Keller. One thing is clear, though. This data center will be about 500 yards or feet from us, and it will be 1,200 feet or yards from yours. That is not ethical, and that it's not fair for both of us. My husband and I came to Marshall Ridge in July of 2010, and for 16 years, we have loved the community, and we have friends also in this community, especially with your school, as an educator. This is an outright disregard for what a friendly neighbor is all about. I kindly and respectfully ask you today, as you deliberate, to think of one thing. One, reconsider this location. The aerial view clearly shows that it's right there, 377 and 170 on the southern part, very close to us. Again, 500 yards or feet, whichever way, it's been calculated. With so much land, east, west, and north in Westlake. Reconsider this is too close to neighborhoods. We have kids, we have school, health concerns. There's just too much impact that it will have on us negatively. Secondly, I ask that you pause this process and give yourself time. Decisions like this require wisdom, careful deliberation, and lots of public participation. I'm glad that we're having this. We wish we would have had this 20 months ago, December of 2024, but you have time to push this in the right direction so that that neighborly trust that we've had can be restored between both communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Jacob Merkel from Keller and Gregory Reeves next from Keller. Jacob here? Is Gregory Reeves here? Sir? Next would be Donald Trost.
Good afternoon, City Council. It's wonderful to be able to get up here and speak to you. We thank you so much for listening to input from the Keller residents. My name is Greg Reeves. I live in Marshall Ridge. I'm probably a little more than a stone's throw from the people on Llano Court, so I'm very concerned about where we stand with putting a data center so close to the residents. I won't recapitulate what's been said over and over again because you've heard it 1,000 times. What I will say is I did take the time to go dig through the drawings, if you will, that the developer put together about that area. I do think 200 feet is way too close. Just to give you a bit of an idea, I did retire from technology. I did spend time in data centers. I've stood beside those big generators. So I understand, probably a little better than some, what it does sound like in a data center. Now, we've also been out to the data center and stood around it, right? We've looked around it, looked at how it was constructed. We parked our vehicle a certain distance away, and then a certain distance away, and then a certain distance away. That hum is, you can't refute the fact that it's there. It's going to be there, it's going to affect people. Now, in looking at the drawings, right, I really give you guys accolades, and I acknowledge the fact that you spent time, the developer spent time creating the appearance of a nice, clean location, right? But I'd really question whether or not those things that they're proposing to do are really going to give us the type of noise abatement, the type of protection from the hum, from the vibration. And I mean, what about the construction? It'll take what, a year and a half to put this thing on the ground? I know from a long-term planning perspective, you guys need to get out there. You need to order the transformers, you need to order the concrete, our developer does. Those things have a lead time on them. So as was said earlier, you guys have some time to spend to try to make this thing more palatable for the citizens of Keller and the citizens of Westlake. I just really wonder about the citizens of Westlake, what they're thinking about this. You guys have some very notable residents in a very beautiful community. I would love to see them kind of stand up and say, this is a right thing or wrong thing. Be nice to hear that. But at the end of the day, I would ask you to revisit how you're going to protect the community from the noise, the vibration, the construction. Even if there's a repair that has to occur, that parking lot is up to 200 feet. It's 200 feet from the residence into Lionel Court. A roof leaks, whatever like that, you're going to bring a crane in. You're creating noise that is going to wake up the kids, wake up the adults. I don't know about you guys, but I'm cranky when I don't get sleep. So at the end of the day, I would ask you to consider every aspect of building, maintaining, operating this data center. And that's it.
Thank you, sir. Donald Trost from Keller, and Kevin Burge from North Richland Hills up next.
My name is Donald Trost, and I live in Marshall Ridge. Mayor and council members, Westlake keeps telling the public that this data center is permitted by right, and that this council is powerless to do anything to stop that. That may be Westlake's legal position, but that does not make it settled, and it does not make the legal questions go away. That by right status exists because of decisions this town made. So do not use by right to shut down the discussion or to shield this council from responsibility for the decisions that will be made today. It is the very thing that should be tested. But whatever happens on the land use question, your own staff report is clear about one thing. You are not required to approve this development agreement today. Your own staff report says that denial is an option. So is continuing or tabling it. And the developer cannot even apply for construction permits without an approved agreement. I am asking you to do three things. First, use the legal advice available to you today to exhaust every legal avenue still available. If there is a legal basis to pause this project, challenge an assumption, reconsider an interpretation, table this agreement, or prevent this project from moving forward, pursue it. Second, do not approve a legally binding agreement that runs with the land until the public has been given the actual agreement and a meaningful opportunity to review it. The materials I reviewed refer to an Exhibit A containing the development agreement. That agreement was not included. A staff summary is not the agreement. Show us the agreement first. Third, if lawful options remain, tell the public what they are, which ones you are choosing not to use, and why. Then own the choice. If lawful options remain and this council chooses not to use them, then be clear about that. That is not inability. That is a decision. Westlake may have boxed itself in by its own prior zoning decisions. Whether that happened knowingly or because no one contemplated what those decisions could eventually mean, I cannot say. But Westlake can now not use that box as a shield. If the town's own decisions helped create the legal constraint this council now relies upon, then you have a responsibility to exhaust every lawful way around that constraint before asking neighboring families to live with the consequences. And if you approve this agreement today, own that decision for what it is. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Kevin Burge, North Richland Hills, and Josh Rabe. I pronounced that wrong. Next.
Good evening. Thank you so much. My name is Kevin Burge. I am from North Richland Hills, and I'm the Democratic nominee for Congress in the 24th District. Now, the 24th District contains all of Keller, and it contains part of Westlake, to include where this data center is currently being placed. Now, you mentioned earlier, Mr. Mayor, that the political winds were changing here when it comes to data centers. But I think you failed to realize that this shouldn't be a political issue, that this instead should be a people issue. All right? What is happening is that most people are not being heard. And that's why they asked me to come tonight, even though I live in North Richland Hills. What's happening is data centers are getting massive tax breaks to come in here to the state of Texas and to build. To include this data center, everything that I could see based on the size, the employment, they stand to have large tax breaks when it comes to sales tax, while the people of Keller, whose neighborhood is being built by, will have property values decreased. And that's just not fair. Again, people are not being heard. And they're not being heard even when it comes to Mattie Parker, the mayor of Fort Worth, whose own husband is a data center lobbyist. I'm sorry to tell you, but the system is rigged for data centers and against people. And so you have the opportunity tonight, and hopefully you're not covered by the Death Star bill, to continue to table this vote, put the data center on the back burner, do the right thing, talk to the community, have people here to really give their input into what they want when it comes to building here. Most people I've heard aren't saying don't build it. They're saying do the due diligence, move it north a little bit. Listen. Your opportunity to listen to the people is tonight. Because if you don't, I fear that the political winds will become a political hurricane, and many people, to include many on this board, will lose their spot when it comes to the next election. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Josh Rabe, R-A-B-E, and Jerry from Keller, and Jerry Johnson from Westlake next.
I'm not a good public speaker. I'm not a good public singer either. But I don't know what else to do, like honestly. And this is all that I can think of to get some voice heard in this whole situation. I wrote a dumb song, okay? Listen to it. Westlake, Texas is building a data center. Let's put it somewhere good. How about on top of that crappy city's little neighborhood? Get the dough from Ross Perot and we'll sell out other people's kids. That's just how neighbors act, you Keller idiots. Westlake's making millions, sit down and learn. You won't hear a thing, you Keller worm. It's gonna be alright. We're gonna build you a berm. Commissioner came to this here spot and said, there is some noise. Let's get a little group together, just me and the boys. We'll all vote yes, and in the end it won't even be that hard. We'll make a buck, and just my luck, it's not in my backyard. Tell Keller it's fine, it won't cost a dime. Don't worry about your sleep. 1,200 yards for us and give them a couple hundred feet. Westlake's making millions, sit down and learn. You won't hear a thing, you Keller worm. It's gonna be alright. We're gonna build you a berm. I don't do that in any sort of disrespect or jest. It's just my feelings, right? The feelings are from real facts. This thing being built so insanely close to my neighborhood, a few hundred feet from where it would be with me and my 4 kids. Fact is that you could build it further. Just don't want to, right? There's nothing stopping you from building this further away other than it's not as profitable to move it further down the highway. Having that hard corner I know is great, right, for commercial and all that kind of stuff. But it's just too close to us, you guys. I think as a mayor and as a city council, you're not corporate CEOs trying to push quarterly earnings for shareholders, right? You're public officials sworn to govern for the well-being of people, actual human beings, families. Tonight is your opportunity to earn something more enduring than a short-term bottom line, the trust and respect of your community and your neighbors. Please vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Jerry Johnson from Westlake, and next is Cynthia Day from Keller.
Mayor Greaves, City Council. My name is Jerry Johnson. I live at 13308 Thornton Drive in Westlake, which is now right in Stagecoach Hills. We met with Wade Carroll after we found out the city wrote a contract to an engineering firm to study putting a water tower within 900 feet of our runway 18, the approach in of runway 18 at Stagecoach Airport. This airport has been established since 1971. It's recognized by the FAA as 4TX2 and is a legal airport for aviation and corporate in and out, or not a corporate, just aviation in and out. This water tower is within the setbacks of what an airport should be. Even though it's a private airport, the FAA does not have legal jurisdiction to say no, but they would be the first one to say it's out of the setbacks for this runway. So my reason to talk to you is to say, let's give a second look. This water tower could better be located down off 377, where you already have two major water tanks, ground level, a pumping station, and a main water line to feed the rest of Westlake. This would be a better location, in our opinion, for this water tower that won't impact Stagecoach Hills Airport. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Cynthia Day from Keller, and next Shannon Duberly from Keller. Cynthia here? Is Shannon here? Susan Eland? And next would be Karen Trost.
Good afternoon. Sorry, I'm short. Have to move that. Good afternoon to everyone. I come today as a grandparent, and I don't know how many of you on this council are grandparents, but it's important to my family. During the Westlake P&Z meeting, my husband was in attendance, and I was at home with our granddaughter. I used that meeting as an opportunity for our 10-year-old granddaughter to learn about city government, especially since it directly impacts the neighborhood she lives in. As she and I cooked dinner, we logged into the meeting and listened. She listened to the presentation by the developers. She also listened to the comments about the proximity of an enormous facility just outside of her neighborhood. She heard the concerns about the potential ongoing noise from the data center that could potentially be heard 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Later over dinner, she looked at me and asked this question. So my grandma's name is Chief. So she said, Chief, do you think the people building that data center so close to our neighborhood understand how hard it is for kids with dyslexia to concentrate? Our granddaughter has dyslexia. She listened to what was being discussed, thought about it, and considered her own experience that she made all by herself. Honestly, her question stopped me. I found myself asking the same question. Has Westlake City Council considered the children who live in Marshall Ridge? Have you considered children with dyslexia, especially this child, all children, but this child is the one that I'm speaking to you about tonight, who is trying to read and do homework? Have you considered the child with ADHD or autism and the difficulties they may face with ongoing noise? These children often have difficulty filtering distractions. Have you considered the continuous mechanical noise day after day, what that could mean for these children? If a 10-year-old little girl, simply by listening to a public meeting and thinking about her own experience, can recognize that possibility, I believe the adults making this decision should be asking questions as well. especially adults who are also trustees of a school and should all be protecting all children. We as parents and grandparents, as well as city officials, should be advocating for children, all children. My point is simple. Children in Keller are just as important as children in Westlake. A city border should not determine which children are protected. I respectfully ask the Westlake City Council to consider the children in Marshall Ridge, not just the property lines, engineering plans, or profit. Because sometimes the most important question comes from a 10-year-old little girl who wants to know that she and friends like her were considered in the decisions made for them by all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen Trost and Jennifer Tierney next.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to come before you and share our opinions on this very important issue. You've heard a lot of opinions already, and I'm not going to repeat those, but I firmly agree with all of them. This does not belong this close to Keller. I respectfully request that instead of doubling down on the specious claim that this land use is allowed by right, that you flip that on its head, change by right, and do right by your neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Tierney.
Just a reminder to the speakers, please announce your name when you come to the podium before you speak. Thank you.
Jennifer Tierney. Next is Marjorie Oates, O-C-H-S, probably pronouncing that wrong. Marjorie here? Thank you, ma'am. Next would be Michael Anderson of Keller.
Thank you for pronouncing my name right. That's impressive.
I was lucky guess. Thanks.
Hello, neighbors. I live not far from you in the beautiful Marshall Ridge neighborhood at 1708 Sterling Trace. My name is Marjorie Oakes. My husband and I have lived in the neighborhood with our 4 children, 3 of whom are here, back there, for 18 years. I work as a high school librarian at their school, and my husband works in clinical research. I came here today to tell you that it is not too late to do the right thing. When asked God's greatest commandments, Jesus responded to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. And he said the second commandment is like the first, to love your neighbor as yourself. So you see, loving your neighbor and treating your neighbor as you yourself would want to be treated is a commandment from God himself. Even though Marshall Ridge is not part of your city, your stewardship of the land directly adjacent to us has a direct impact on us, your neighbors. What you do affects our protected wetlands with its great blue herons, golden-crested night herons, red-shouldered hawks, painted buntings, and bobcats. It affects our growing children's development and the learning of students at Ridgeview Elementary, especially those with learning disabilities. The studies of how living next to these data centers can affect a human being's health, especially that of developing fetuses in the womb, are in their most preliminary stages because living next door to a data center this huge is all new. This would be the biggest data center in the state of Texas. Your neighbors in Marshall Ridge will be the test subjects, the phase 1 study of a clinical trial that we did not consent to. But it's not too late. You, neighbors, you can stop it. You say your hands are tied, that it's already passed, but there are legal precedents that say otherwise. Because of the lack of transparency about what you are actually proposing and your lack of notification of the residents of Llano Court, you can rescind the approval due to procedural errors. You can start over. Your mistakes could be what gets you out of this mess if you will only do what is right. In closing, I pray that you would consider your neighbors. Our health, our quality of life is in your hands. Because of our proximity to you, what happens to us will eventually affect you too. Our health problems, our decrease in property values will be a dark stain right over your border, and everyone in Westlake and Keller will remember that you were the council that allowed it. But if you turn back, if you stop this, we will all remember you as our heroes, as the good neighbors we've always been. Again, I say, it's not too late to do the right thing.
Thank you. I called Michael Anderson. Are there two Michael Andersons, or was this a duplicate? Makes that easy, thank you. Is there another one here? Okay. Holly Doty and Joe Salmon from Keller is next. Thank you, sir.
Hello, my name is Holly Doty, and I've lived in Marshall Ridge since 2008. Resolution 26-25 should, at a minimum, be tabled due to several potential legal, procedural, and regulatory conflicts across 5 distinct areas. 1, this resolution authorizes a development agreement based on drawings marked for review only, not for construction or permit purposes. Under TCEQ General Permit TXR 150000, staging and site preparation constitutes construction activity. Authorizing physical site work based on an uncertified conceptual drawing appears to conflict with Texas Occupations Code, Section 1001.402, and Title 22, Texas Administrative Code, Section 137.33, subsection E, which prohibit using review-only documents for construction authorization. 2, the development agreement allows the developer to begin staging before the town engineer reviews and approves grading and drainage plans. This appears to conflict with Westlake's own code, Section 36-161, subsection C, paragraph 4, which requires an approved erosion control plan prior to construction. Administrative resolutions cannot waive mandatory safety ordinances, and doing so risks statutory drainage liability under Texas Water Code, Section 11.086. 3, the agenda packet concedes electrical connection approvals do not yet exist, noting the site may be repurposed should state approvals fail. Granting municipal development rights for a 300 megawatt load before securing grid audit, interconnection, and CCN approvals under Texas Utilities Code, Section 37.051, and Title 16, Texas Administrative Code, Section 25.101, risk creating speculative zoning and circumventing state oversight. 4, the approved site plan references a proposed 350 megawatt substation plus 2 internal substations, none of which exist. Under Westlake Code, Section 102-183, sound levels cannot exceed codified limits at the residential boundary. Standard A-weighted or DBA measurements filter out 120 and 240 hertz low-frequency transformer hum. Council should require cumulative modeling projections of all unbuilt substations, chillers, and generators operating simultaneously while also modeling C-weighted or DBC levels. Number 5, under Ordinance 1015, by right use was granted exclusively to just the first data center applicant while requiring a specific use permit for all others. Conditioning land use rights on application chronology appears to conflict with the uniformity mandate of Texas Local Government Code 211.005 subsection B, calling into question the validity of the underlying zoning. Moving forward on Resolution 26-25 at this juncture would be irresponsible, and the only reasonable action is to table this measure. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Joe Salmon from Keller and Ben Nelson from Keller up next. Mr. Salmon.
Thank you. Joe Salmon from neighboring Overton Ridge, right next to Marshall Ridge. Thank you for allowing me to come up here. I just was going to read over the question and a comment I submitted, and then I was going to make a couple of additional comments. But, in here, there's been such, great eloquence in here. That song was awesome, and I have concerns like others in here about the water supplies, the climate impacts that's been talked about. It's a big deal, and it's a known fact out there. We have to, it's going to need constant and reliable power supply, gas-fired generators and backups with diesel. This is big, big power and a lot going into the environment. And I'm sure you're aware of that. You've gone over it. You said you've been well prepared. You know what you're doing as far as the submission, and you have that covered. The only other thing I think, going forward, I have a feeling that, this is a private land. It's going to become, fruition. It's going to happen. And I hope there's a chance for, an advocacy group, somebody that's independent panel, they can come and check on progress, be a part of something that's outside of Westlake, outside of Hillwood, something that's a group from Keller, certainly from the next door neighbors there where it's being built for Marshall Ridge. They can be an advocacy and keep an eye on the facility, not only for myself. What do I have, another 20, 30 years around here? We're talking about the kids down the road that's going on. So that's something I hope is considered. And then finally, I just wanted to, looking at the Hillwood culture, they state on there, Hillwood, you can go on their website, is defined by its people. Our unwavering commitment, this is from the website, to integrity drives every decision we make. And our forward-thinking approach keeps our teams focused on new opportunities that build along the paths of progress. Our culture is rooted in caring. Our teams support organizations' activities that honor first responders, assist military families and wounded veterans, and support the underserved in our communities. It's how we foster an environment that is diverse, inclusive, and brimming with the balance in business and community first and foremost, unquote. And finally, again, just looking at, there was a poll that came out about Fort Worth newsmakers and the media selecting people of influence on there, again, from their website. And it talks about people you want to be involved with and know that as leaders. And it was focused on Fort Worth, another neighboring city right here in the Cowtown area. And that person that they were highlighting as an advocate and looking out for the greater good of the public was the president of Hillwood, Mike Berry. I don't think Hillwood would be, concerned, would be concerned about putting something next to their communities, but just taking a look at that, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Ben Nelson from Keller, and then Hillary Finfrock from Keller next.
Hello folks, my name is Ben Nelson. I first moved to Keller in 1993. I'm not going to restate the great arguments we've heard about electricity, water, and noise. I just want to reiterate though, there are more residents in Marshall Ridge neighborhood than in all of Westlake. Do have a couple questions. What exactly transpired in December of 2024? Doesn't appear that Westlake residents were notified. Keller residents certainly were not. And 211.007C does not appear to have been followed. Now I read online today that there's a restraining order. This is going to continue to cost your community money and our community money, which is not why any of us are here. So when was this approved? Was there even a vote? I was at the P&Z meeting a few weeks ago. It lasted about 9 weeks, it felt like. I always assumed that y'all would vote on this stuff. It makes me feel that maybe this is to avoid the public from asking questions and discover who and what companies have donated to any of y'all's campaigns. It was fitting that you quoted Maddie Parker early at this meeting, who is on record as accepting $14,500 in campaign contributions from Black Mountain, an energy consortium trying to build a Fort Worth data center. Asking for developers to conduct studies on this is like asking if Big Tobacco I could take up smoking, if that's a good idea. I believe that your hands are not truly tied. There's a way to get out of this. As a city council, you can pass new ordinances. Protect both cities with rules around light pollution, noise pollution. Once again, the planning and zoning meeting on August 4th said nothing about a dark sky ordinance. Where are we at on this? Saying our hands are tied, it's just not going to be good enough. This monstrosity being 500 feet away from Keller Homes and the Westlake social media team bragging about protecting Westlake residents with a 3,600-foot buffer is obscene. Why is it 500 feet from me and 3,600 feet for thee. Do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Hillary Finfrock, and next, Sandy Reeves from Keller.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm here today because the situation is completely different from any other data center project. It is because of the location bordering my town. I live in Marshall Ridge, and I will address the council, powerhouse, additional individuals as the decision makers because my approach is very different than what you all have heard, and I think it needs to be said. What's happened with the proposed data center in Westlake is so deeply troubling. This project was advanced without consultation that Marshall Ridge will bear the consequences. It was done secretively within Westlake, and the way it's been unfolded is sneaky, secretive, deceptive, and deeply unethical to all the residents who are left out of the process. It feels very intentional. We weren't given an opportunity to understand what was being proposed, ask questions, voice concerns, or have a seat at the table before moving forward. How is it ethical for one community to receive the financial benefits of a project while a neighboring community bears the consequences? Westlake is the farthest reach from a poverty-stricken city who desperately needs the funds from this project. Westlake is one of the wealthiest cities, not just in DFW, but in all of Texas, and they will benefit greatly from this development. But homes, families, traffic, noise, visual impact, all the things you guys have heard, but severe property values will be affected in Keller, mostly Marshall Ridge. One resident in Westlake posted something on a Nextdoor site stating that if Keller wants to be babies about this, then we need to give them the funds that they're going to miss from this project. I'm not going to comment any more on that. It speaks volumes. Who will give Marshall Ridge and Keller our lost equity? We are affected the most. Most of us have our life savings in our homes. I can speak for our entire community when I say that this project affects us more than anyone else, and it also can affect when we retire. Our homes are life or death for many. I don't understand how you can look at the families in this neighborhood and tell them that it's ethical that this goes forward. One question people always ask is, why would someone do that? Because they can, free will. But how can any decision maker sleep at night when they know intentionally that it's tearing families upside down? So how would you feel if this was in your backyard? If this data center were being built next to a home where your family, grandchildren, children live, would you be comfortable the way it's been handled? Okay, I'm going to skip. It's really easy to support a development that's really not affecting you. Leadership is not just about what can go forward. It's about who's going to pay the price. And right now, that's myself in our neighborhood and the rest of Keller. I'm not against this. I'm a licensed realtor. I know exactly how land is zoned. Bring a warehouse, good Lord, bring a D.R. Horton neighborhood. I don't care at this point. But a data center, that's a choice. You can still do a commercial zoned property or commercial zoned building without doing anything like a data center that's going to dramatically affect everything you've heard and what I'm saying now and all of our funds. This is not the twilight zone. Please wake me up.
Thank you. Sandy Reeves from Keller and Gregory Will from Keller next.
Good afternoon. My name is Sandy Reeves. I live in the Marshall Ridge community. I am a mother, a grandmother, and a retired teacher. How many of you are parents? All of you? Grandparents? Any of you? As adults, it is our duty, our responsibility to protect children, not just our own children, all children. If you have not done any research on the effects of data centers on school children, you really should. Brown University, which is an Ivy League school in Rhode Island, has done research that shows math performance declined for students whose school was within a mile of a data center. The research also shows that the continuous hum from cooling systems, fans, and backup diesel generators cause the student distraction, stress, and lower reading and concentration levels. Now think of those children who have dyslexia, ADHD, and autism. Think of what they may be suffering with this data center next to them. The Planning and Zone Committee said they would recommend a larger berm than was in the contract, which the contractor did not commit to. But it seems to me that unless the berm was as tall as the building, the noise and pollution will still rise over and the berm and affect the children at Ridgeview. So let me ask you, aren't Keller children as important as Westlake children? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Gregory, Will, and from Keller, and Jacob Jonathan from Keller next.
Mayor and Council, my name is Greg Will. I represent the 47,727 residents of the city of Keller. Elected service is a solemn duty. We're entrusted by our neighbors to represent them when decisions are being made that affect their homes, their families, the future of their community. That responsibility requires transparency, accountability, and above all else, a willingness to listen. Unfortunately, the residents living near this proposed data center have not received, in my opinion, the transparency or consideration that they deserve. Respectfully, I'm here to say that that is not how government is supposed to work. I'm also deeply disappointed by the misleading public statements made by the town of Westlake, attempting to shift the responsibility of your decisions onto Keller. I will submit to you that the pointing fingers does nothing to address the very real concerns of these families who live only hundreds of feet from this proposed development. These residents aren't political talking points. They are our neighbors, they are families who invested in their homes and community, and they deserve answers, respect, and a substantive voice in the conversation. Last week, my colleagues and I spent several hours drafting and unanimously passed a resolution calling on this body to pause any further action on this project and to use that time to sit down with Keller leaders, listen to our residents' issues, and determine what steps can be done to meaningfully address and mitigate their concerns. We've also retained special counsel to evaluate Keller's legal options. I sincerely ask you to choose cooperation over confrontation. Keller and Westlake will remain neighbors long after this issue is resolved, and good neighbors should be able to sit across the table, listen to one another, and find reasonable solutions. But I should emphasize that cooperation does not mean silence in the face of callous actions, and unfortunately, Keller's concerns have thus far fallen on deaf ears. But Brutus is an honorable man. Keller residents believe their homes, quality of life, and community are threatened, and they need to know that their city leaders will stand with them. We're going to ask the tough questions. We will demand transparency. We will pursue every reasonable and legal option available to us, but most importantly, we will continue showing up for the people who elected us to represent them. Keller residents trusted us to fight for them, and I intend to honor that faith in us. Keller will be heard.
Thank you. Jonathan Jacobs. And then next, for Alicia Ostermeyer from Keller.
Evening, Council, Mayor. My name is Jonathan Jacobs, and I sincerely appreciate you having us here tonight. I know as a citizen of Keller, none of you are directly accountable to me at the polls, and I recognize that, and I appreciate you hearing me nonetheless. I want to start by saying I work for an AI forward tech defense company, so I fully recognize both the economic and national defense implications of AI. Might even take some heat from my environmental scientist daughter in the gallery here, but I might even go so far as to say I'm for AI. I'm for it. What I am not for, though, is doing things that will negatively impact the day-to-day lives of the citizens that I swore to protect, both as a U.S. Marine and now in the civilian defense sector. To support that type of hypocrisy, I simply couldn't reconcile it. I can't claim in one hand to live a life in defense and service to citizens while simultaneously contributing to the suffering for my own benefit. Your truth about data center post was anything but. Its claims regarding planning timelines and developer property ownership rely on half-truths and obfuscations, unfortunately mirroring the exact tactics we've seen throughout this entire development, and incidentally, closely reflecting the conditions driving the ongoing lawsuit against Hillwood Powerhouse Joint Venture in Illinois. These observations leave me with two unfortunate possibilities to consider. Either Westlake is, like many of us, a victim of a slick developer and their greed, or concerningly, that you're co-conspirators, complicit in robbing your neighbors of our property values, quality of life, simply to reduce your own tax burden. Many have suggested the latter. I would like to believe that it's the former, and that your actions tonight will prove me right. I want to ask for things like restrictions on generator usage to ensure they're not used as a primary source of power during the hot summers, as they have been in many other data centers. I wanted to ask for things like firm, strong limits on sound violations and clear recourse for Keller citizens in the inevitable event that these occur. These petitions were born from, frankly, hopelessness. I had lost all hope that this council would retain the humanity to recognize this action for what it is, possibly legal, but absolutely morally reprehensible. My wife, an amazing woman of faith, reminded me that I shouldn't lose hope, that it's not too late for this council to do what's right. Not because you have to, but because you know that you should. You can table it, you can work with the developer to move, any number of things. You all know, we all know, everyone knows that Hillwood can afford to move. My family, my neighbors, we can't. We are your neighbors, and we will remain your neighbors regardless of the outcome here tonight. The question you have to ask, what kind of neighbors do you want? Thank you.
Thank you. Alicia Ostermeyer and Tatum Parks next.
Hello, my name's Alicia Ostermeyer. I live in Marshall Ridge, and I've been there since 2009. We built our house. Our boys have graduated high school from this house, and this is the house I hope to be when I retire. So I absolutely oppose the data center. And number one, I agree with the Keller Resolution number 5085 and request that Westlake complies with all the requests in this resolution. Please, please, look at testing before construction, not after. That makes the most sense. As a Marshall Ridge resident who is very close to the edge of this proposed site, I'm very concerned about the noise, our health, our quality of life. Our quiet walking trail will never be the same. It will never be the same relaxing walk. The damages to the infrastructure of power and water are real. Drainage issues and flooding is also a concern. 377 floods already when there's a big rain. The road gets closed. What's going to happen when there's over 1 million square feet of new buildings and a parking lot? In addition, I'm concerned about the development standards. What are those? There are questions. I'm concerned about the transparency of the project. I'm mostly concerned about the proximity of the proposed data center to my home. 506 feet to the Keller homes versus 3,600 feet to the Westlake homes. That's really not very nice. If my son did that, we would have a chat. These are a lot of the issues, and many impact the health of Keller residents. But I really want to focus on the noise. It's real. Study after study has been done. It's real. And the noise alone, without the thoughts of what gets pumped into the air, and the Harvard study that showed what is put into the air increases hospitalizations, issues with asthma, and early death. So that's one study that's out there, but it's the noise that really is also a big focus because it's chronic sleep deprivation, elevated stress and anxiety, increased blood pressure, hypertension, and cardiovascular disease. I've had serious life-threatening issues, health issues. So I do not take my health lightly. And I don't think about it lightly. It's serious. As you've all heard, when you don't have good health, you don't have good life. And you cannot by good health. You can make it better, you can treat it, but you can never fix it. So please consider the golden rule and treat your neighbors like yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Tatum Parks. And from Southlake, and next is Yisak Worku. Apologize for the pronunciation.
Hi, my name is Tatum Parks, and I'm representing Lee Wamsgons, candidate for Texas Senate District 9. Here are her words. I'm not opposed to data centers. I'm opposed to building a data center in such close proximity to homes and neighborhood schools. The governor's audit and approval pause on data center development until common sense parameters are in place to protect Texan safety and quality of life is the right course. That includes ensuring affordable energy, maintaining a reliable electric grid, and preserving water for our communities. It also includes being good neighbors. This includes reducing impacts on neighboring property owners and communities, including noise mitigation, light controls, and setbacks. The concern here is the setback or distance from the existing Marshall Ridge community. Additionally, I have a record of working to protect the security and reliability of Texas's electric grid back to 2015, and the energy demand concerns me. The governor's directive pointed out that the data center interconnection applications currently pending before the PUC and ERCOT exceed the current capacity of our Texas grid. Responsible developers are bringing new generation resources online to meet their demand and, in many cases, provide additional generation to the grid. That should be the standard. The governor's directive states that PUCT and ERCOT must complete audits before any data center project moves forward. I have spoken to many Marshall Ridge residents, and they, like me, are not against data centers. We know every action Texans take, from saving photos of our children, grandchildren, and pets to streaming podcasts, shopping online, and using GPS or social media, relies on data centers. Two things can be true at the same time. Texas can support technological innovation and investment, and Texans can protect our communities, neighborhoods, schools, and natural resources. I appreciate and respect the leadership in Westlake, Texas. I agree with the governor's directive, and I stand with the citizens of Marshall Ridge. Thank you.
Thank you. Yisak Worku. And then next is Prasant Rajpal. I apologize, saying that wrong.
All right. Yisak Worku, state representative candidate for District 91. District 91 doesn't cover Keller or Westlake, but I received a message from a Keller resident asking me to come out, and I had no choice because a neighbor needed help. In 2021, when all of our power went out and we were all in crisis, we turned to one another because that's what neighbors do. That's what we do in Texas. This choice that this council has made has not been a human one, it's been a political one. They have chosen to put their data center where it is least damaging to them and their electoral prospects. They have placed the burden over the city lines, where the people here complaining cannot vote them out. The industry has done this purposefully. This is not the first time we have seen this issue arise. Just recently in Fort Worth, we saw legislation watered down out of concern that some of the data centers might go and start building in unannexed territory right next to Fort Worth, where they have no jurisdiction. This has been an issue where the industry, where the powerful, are saying time and time again that they hear our concerns, that they understand where we're coming from. We've seen the governor say that he will do something on data centers. We've seen the politicians say they are all concerned. But every day is another day that passes where nothing happens. Every day, The governor does not call for a special session to take care of this issue. Every day, politicians say they care, and they do nothing, and they allow more of these crises to occur. It is easy when elections are upcoming to say you care. My concern is that they are hoping they can ride out all of our anger, all of our frustration, and when the next session comes, they will do what they always intended to do. Nothing. We want to see change. We want to see these data centers shut down. And we have the power to do so. But the power is in the hands of the people now. Because no one in power seems to want to change anything. So I encourage everyone to vote, regardless of which party, for candidates that take this issue so seriously.
Thank you. Prashant and Lindsay Jones next from Keller.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the Council. Thank you for your leadership and dedicated service to our town. My name is Prashant Rajpal. I'm a Westlake resident living in Stagecoach, surrounded by reserved area. Thank you. I stand before you tonight to humbly ask a few protective questions regarding the data center development agreement. My goal this evening is to ensure we are exploring every necessary guardrail required to protect our shared community ecosystem. I deeply respect that this council must balance the physical health of our town. A data center brings town revenue boost with only 75 permanent employees, meaning virtually zero traffic on Highway 377 compared to a loud trucking terminal or manufacturing plant. Logistically, that structure layout makes sense. However, because a small workforce of only 75 people cannot physically monitor every square inch of a 1.1 million square foot site, it raises critical safety and operational oversight questions. First, have we fully evaluated the long-term impacts on our electric grid and water supply? This campus is slated for a massive 300 megawatt critical IT load, which completely clears the state's 75 megawatt large load thresholds for extra grid scrutiny. Furthermore, what localized guardrails prevent internal electrical glitches at the mega facility from cascading back to affect the shared Westlake water pump station sitting right on the property? This is a crucial risk parameter given that the site will simultaneously consume 54 million gallons of water annually. Data center cooling systems require heavy chemical treatments such as biocides and corrosion inhibitors to stop algae and mold. If a piping failure occurs, what specific protections ensure this chemical-heavy water waste never leaks into our storm drains or contaminates the local watershed? These are vital health and safety concerns for our local families, our students, and our neighboring Buddhist monastery. Second, we have considered how our 49 decibel nighttime noise limit will be actively monitored and enforced at 2 a.m. in the morning. Because a continuous low-frequency hum from cooling fans behave differently than standard ambient noise, and because these massive structures sit just 500 feet away from Keller's Marshall Ridge backyards, these mechanical impacts naturally cross city lines. This industry operates entirely on strict corporate SLAs to guarantee perfect uptime to their technical clients. Have we considered writing an identical community SLA directly into this development contract? Could we explore a joint Westlake-Keller environmental monitoring board comprised of local residents from both cities and driven by live independent data to oversee compliance before the site going live? Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Lindsay Jones and Tim Johns from Keller next.
Good evening. My name is Lindsay Jones. I am a Keller resident and I live just 500 feet from the property line. I'm a mother of two beautiful boys, one of which has autism and is highly sensitive to sounds. I'd like to read you an excerpt from his journal written at Ridgeview Elementary, the school just next to this data center. It's free, right? I don't really hate your class. I like it. I like the forest theme. I also like the paintings. I like everything about it, from the LEDs to the mirrors. I like everything, but I want complete silence. Seriously, that obnoxious AC is driving me crazy. Same with the music. In fact, that's the reason I can't even work. I also have ADHD, which makes it even worse. So I'm not necessarily saying I love it, I'm just saying that I like it. As you see, the slightest noises are a distraction for him. Homework is a daily battle that results in tears nearly every night in our home. I cannot imagine how the noise from this monstrous facility is going to torture him. Over the last couple of weeks, our residents have done your homework. Homework that should have been done long before the project of this magnitude was ever brought this far. We have provided you with more than enough information and more than enough basis to stop this project, or at minimum, table it for now. If the homes sitting next to this project belong to you, if these were your children, sleeping just a few hundred yards away, would you approve it? Look me in the eyes and tell me that you would put your children to bed next to this every night. Tell me that you would be pacified by the solutions that you have given us. Some added trees and a berm. If you believe these measures will eliminate the low-frequency noise and vibrations that are most damaging, then you are not qualified to make decisions on the construction of such a facility. You know nothing of the protective measures required and that this facility should not be next to any homes. Westlake has an opportunity tonight to demonstrate that economic development will never come before the safety, quality of life, and reasonable expectations of our families. Because you do not need to allow this by right. Over the last few weeks, many residents, including Ashley Cook, have provided detailed info on numerous contradictions, omissions, and errors throughout this data center's approval process. You have plenty of basis to deny or table this project. After all, we have done the homework for you. The town of Westlake does not look good in the media right now, but you can still turn it around. This is your legacy, and each one of you will be remembered for your individual decision. Are you strong enough to stand up and stop this? Or will you cower down and say it's out of your hands and allowed by right? I am asking you as a mother, please help us. You can still do the right thing.
Thank you. Tim Johns and Eric Stevens next.
Hello, Council. My name is Tim Johns, and my wife and I live in Marshall Ridge. Today, I want to address the true facts from my nearly 50 years of professional experience as an audio engineer in this industry. How to developers misleading talking points. A multidisciplinary digital publishing institute published article in May 2026 concluded that prolonged exposure to low-level sound commonly considered safe may still pose a risk when exposure is sustained, with implications of hearing loss or alterations. In a published article in July-August 2025 by Ovid, a recognized center of the most trusted medical evidence, said that there is an adverse negative effect from chronic exposure to low-frequency noise resulting in muscular, skeletal pain, psychological distress, and quality of life. Another highly trusted source for audio technology, SoundSea, published an article explaining that low-frequency sound travels farther than high-frequency sounds, primarily due to their longer wavelengths, a characteristic that makes them more realized over long distances. These low-frequency hums can be noticeable up to 2.5 miles away, not just 1,200 yards. In practical terms, longer wavelengths allow low-frequency sounds to maintain their oscillating energy, resulting in bending or diffracting around obstacles and barriers. This is why any berm, no matter how high, or foliage will have little to no effect from the constant low frequencies associated with the data center. These unrealistic remedies will be as effective as putting perfume on a landfill. Yet another report by Life Science Analysis and Reporting Solution concluded that continuing sources that produce noise at every large facility consisting of cooling fans, transformers, switchgear, HVAC ventilation, backup generator runs, and load tests produce a disruptive low-frequency hum. This study further noted that property values can be reduced by up to 20% or more because of these sustained audible noise conditions. And since data centers run 24/7, this produces a full noise output every minute of every day without relief, causing audio fatigue, thereby creating many detrimental health and hearing implications. These are just a sampling of the myriad of accessible facts when it comes to the many negative audio ramifications from data centers. Honestly, based on the heightened newsworthiness of this consideration, you have a PR nightmare on your hands. So I'm asking the Westlake City Council to do the right thing and not just put a pause on this project, but to punt and be the good neighbor that we have been to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Eric Stevens next, and Michelle, Nuques, following.
Good evening. My name is Eric Steffen. I really struggled with what to say today. My emotions bounced off of being frustrated, just wanting to confront the council on what I thought was a lack of transparency to the public, to addressing the developer and saying, before we even build anything, we should do, as many people have suggested, is do some predictive studies. I feel like we're not all sure what we're actually building. We know what it looks like, but we don't know what the impact is. And so, then I was like, well, do I spend my time talking about, let's talk about these berms and let's talk about these, those baffles. And I was like, no, let's talk about stuff we can agree upon. So I think we can all agree upon that this data center, this data center that is looming, has caused an impact. It's caused an impact for Westlake. It's caused an impact for Keller. It's caused an impact that brought the media here. It's not just local, it's international. Clearly, it has an impact. Second, I think we can all agree on, for the most part, data centers are negatively perceived. They don't have a good perception in the public eye. So then I look at that and I go, well, why am I trying so hard to figure out if it's even going to be safe for someone that lives on Llano Court and my back door is 560 feet from the proposed building, when perception is reality? So if the perception of America, as evident by the hundreds of people that have packed the P&Z meeting, the people that are here today, the 300 or 400 there at the Keller meeting, and then the negative connotation across the United States about data centers, I have to look at it and go, I need to move and persuade you to just not put it where it is designed to go. And I think we should agree with Governor Abbott. It doesn't belong in a residential area. 560 feet from my back door, that's a residential area. And I don't disagree that that is zoned for commercial. But just because it's zoned for commercial doesn't mean that that is the right fit, commercial fit for that property. So please, now I've got 8 seconds left. I'm looking for a resolution that maybe can still build a data center, but put it in a commercial zone. Don't put it next to a residential backdrop. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Michelle. And then next is Patricia Priest from Keller.
Good afternoon. My name is Michelle Nuques. I appreciate the opportunity to express my opposition and incredible disappointment in the placement and the lack of transparency surrounding this data center. I'm a Marshall Ridge resident. I don't live as close as my neighbors on Llano Court, but I live far closer than what is considered safe or even reasonable to such a development. As for our neighbors on Llano Cart, I can't imagine how this project announcement has affected you all, because I know it's left me sleepless. I don't oppose data centers, and I believe in property owners having the right to develop their land. And I strongly oppose a development infringing on neighbors' homes with such reckless and disregard for our investments, our quality of life, and our health. If this data center is built where it's proposed, Hillwood, the Perot family, Westlake will always be known by their lack of regard for anything or anyone else, and how this project was handled. Westlake, Hillwood, you should be better than this, and I believe that you are. I want to thank the Westlake Council, the Planning and Zoning Committee, because what this has shown us as citizens, how important it is once we vote people into office, we have to show up to meetings and find out what's going on. Because when elected officials are let to run amok, we see things like this happening. I'm asking you as a neighbor, I want to be a good neighbor. I expect the same from you. Please protect Keller Marshall Ridge residents, just like you claim that you are protecting your Westlake residents themselves on your Westlake webpage. I read through it today and I don't know what to say. Please do the right thing.
Thank you. Patricia Priest from Keller, and then Alan Heath next.
Hi, I actually live in Marshall Point, which is inside of Marshall Ridge. There's about 80 or so homes that are inside of the neighborhood that obviously no one's talked about here today. And I am their reluctant HOA president because nobody shows up to our HOA meetings. Nobody runs for the board. Everyone is silent on it. Nobody really even knows that I am the president, and the only reason that I am is when we got the third letter around begging anyone to sign up, I finally reluctantly said, maybe it's my turn. And now I can't even get off the board. Because you can't unless somebody shows up and takes your place. So me and my other two people were sort of indentured servants on it. We can't get people to come to our meetings. And after a while of trying to encourage people to come, it finally dawned on me that the reason that nobody comes to our HOA meetings is they're really happy. They're not mad about anything. And even when I showed up to my first Keller City Hall meeting the other day, and here, I realized that that's how people figure out who you are, is because they're really, really unhappy. I'm not as far away from this as even some of the Marshall Ridge people. We're pretty close, and actually everyone within Marshall Point is closer even than a lot of the Marshall Ridge houses. And to say that we were blindsided is just, it's an understatement of the century. Not because we necessarily expected you to always act in our best interest, but because I think the perception that we had of you guys in Westlake is that you were a really desirable place, that you had wealth, that you were where we would like to live if we could afford what you had. And I think I'm just so surprised, even though you're putting it way in the corner or trying to near us, that you would put it in your place at all. I was scrolling social media the other day, like we all do now, and I came across this video of this man who saved all these children in the Holocaust, and he did not realize that he was sitting in a room full of the adults that he had saved, and they pointed it out to him. And of course, it's this very touching, moving video. And it really made me think about the legacy that we leave behind. And right now, you guys are holding a legacy, not even for us, but like the envy of the area is Westlake. And you guys are holding something pretty special in your hands that either you preserve that or it's a sliding doors moment and you don't. But you guys have a unique opportunity in front of you to be the heroes or the people that didn't hold the ground on this tidal wave that's coming through all over the country. We were so blindsided because we never thought you would put this anywhere on your land. Thank you.
Thank you. Alan Heath.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Town Council. I'm Alan Heath. I live at 5944 Stagecoach Circle here in Westlake. This February marks the 40th year that we've been inside this town. During that time, I've also served on the Planning and Zoning Commission from the 1990s to the 2010s. And as a part of that, the Town Council did pass Ordinance 314, which I did give up here to the board if you do care to pass that out. During that time, that's part of the contentious Circle T negotiations back and forth. And I remember Mayor Bradley, when he swore me in one time, saying, congratulations and thank you. The lawsuit will be in the mail tomorrow morning. So with that background, I'd just like to point out Ordinance 314, which I did give out to all you guys, which was signed and passed in 1998. I did not give you the full ordinance because I don't want to kill a tree, but I'm sure you have that in your town agenda packet. If you refer to the third sheet, it's Article 2, it says permissible uses for PD, or for Planning Area 8. If you go on the back of that third page, you'll see many, many permissible uses. And we did give some thought down through that way. If you take a look down towards the bottom end, I actually highlighted it with a pink highlighter. It says data center. Notice there is no X marked in any of the columns there for any of the retail, office, industrial areas. There's also no S there saying it would be permittable by a special use permit. So we did give it thought about, do we want to allow data centers in this area or not? And we said no. So with that in mind, you have some facts. That's all I'll say.
Thank you, sir. Jason Skewers, S-K-E-W-E-S, Jason. Tom Fulbright. That ends the comments. I appreciate everybody's civility, really do. Next, we're going to agenda item E1, discuss, consider, and act regarding to approve resolution 26-25.
No, ma'am, that is not. That is not what it said. What it said was that we had a regular meeting scheduled for August 18th, and that when we decided to call the special meeting on August 17th, that if you had signed up to speak on the 18th, then you did not need to worry. You would have already been signed up for the 17th.
Council, let her speak. Linda, come speak. Come speak. Come.
Allow additional people to provide the minutes on there, but, and I'll just elaborate a little bit on the last time that we spoke. Just real quick, anybody in here that is for the data center, raise your hand. Nobody? Well, you indicated that there was no opposition in Westlake for this data center, but I sure don't see anybody that came here to speak for the data center tonight. That should be a little bit telling as well to our council. I'd like to go through, since I have to shorten it up, I'm getting to the most important points. Claim. On August 6th, the town of Westlake sent a communication through Westlake Wire stating, this parcel of land has been zoned for commercial and industrial use since 1998. They then went on to chastise Keller for not raising concerns about their residential development in proximity to Westlake land zoned for commercial and industrial. Fact. This is a blatantly false statement. The Westlake land has been zoned and still is zoned planned development. The quote, office industrial is only defined as a sub-area under the specific and limited set of permitted uses listed in the PD tables. The full list of permitted uses that allow office industrial include hospital, school, daycare, library, government building, and other relatively benign entities. The term data center is used, but not as a standalone entity. It is defined and is still defined in its 1998 definition, since that is when the term data center was originally written into this legal document. The 1998 definition of data center allowed the developer to put in a computer mainframe room inside one of the other permitted uses. It did not give the developer the legal right to build the currently proposed standalone industrial-sized AI data center complex. Otherwise, why was there a need to update the PD document if it was already zoned as commercial and industrial? It wasn't. No, the town of Westlake, let me see, 1 minute, okay. So, yeah, developer used the legal right. I need to get to this one point because this is really special. 1998, so what types of changes did the December 24 set the table to create a legal right for this developer, legal right to build an AI data center complex, max building height increases, increased building footprints, adding checks, little checks to the permitted use table to seemingly transform the very definition of data center. Now let's compare this to our Westlake Comprehensive Plan. It includes the following policy statements. A building, I've got it, here you go. Comprehensive Plan, if you don't have a copy. Building height for commercial structures should be controlled in order to preserve views to and from the prominent hills. Minimize the size of building footprints which can produce large unnatural flat building pads. Why does this still matter? Compare this to the litigation still between the town of Westlake and the developer, who has the contract and legal right to build a 130-foot cell tower right outside the gates of Vaquero, where the mayor and mayor pro tem live. A recent article states, quote, the resolution cited the tower's height violation. Vertical Bridge's application was for a 130-foot tower, conflicts with the town's comprehensive plan view preservation goals, potential adverse impacts on nearby property values on streets where homes range from 4.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, your time is up. Please leave the podium.
Ma'am, thank you for your comments. Your time's up.
Thank you.
We were kind enough to let you speak. Thank you. We go to agenda item E1. Discuss, consider, and act regarding to approve resolution 26-25 approving a development agreement between the town of Westlake, Texas and Circle T Owners, LP, for the infrastructure and other related improvements for data center development to be designed and built on approximately 87.96 acre tract of land, which is generally located at the northeast corner of United States Highway 377 and Westport Parkway, Westlake, Texas. We'll now have a presentation from Mr. Carroll.
Bruce, thank you, sir. Tonight before you, as we stated, we're going to discuss and act on the resolution 2526 approving the development agreement between the town of Westlake and Texas and Circle T Ownership, LP. Tonight, really the developer's agreement is set forth and required by section 102.316 by our Code of Ordinances that requires that all development that's done in Westlake has a developer's agreement. That is any land that's platted for development or for the purpose of planned development zoning is required to have a developer's agreement. The purpose of the developer's agreement is to provide for the timing of construction, public improvements, and the timing for the development of those public improvements, ownership and the maintenance obligations of that infrastructure that's put in place, and the standards for development. The development agreement is contemplating this evening is between the Circle T Ownership, as stated before, and LP and the town of Westlake, and it's seated on approximately 88 acres off of Highway 377. This is an aerial shot of the development in the 88 acres. You'll notice the pump station to the north and the homeowner association toward the south. Our Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed and considered the site plan on August the 4th in accordance with applicable ordinances and approved that with the following additions or the following conditions for the developer. Number one, the installation of sound barrier walls or acoustic louvers around all cooling towers, generators, and other mechanical equipment. The installation of immediate continuous visual screening along the entire southern border or the length of the southern border. And then third, they asked that the installation of any combination of a berm or sound barrier wall, minimum of 8 feet in height, that may be required to visually screen the data center along the entire length of the southern border as well. All of those items were added to the developer's agreement after that meeting. What you see before you is one page of the site plan, and I can show you, if I can get the laser to work. You look on the far southern edge of the development, that is the location that the berm will be placed, the vegetation that will be placed there as well. And then if you notice in the center, the light blue sections, that is the generators that will be placed for the data center. We ask that those generators be transferred to the inside corridors between the buildings. So you'll have a multi-story building between the generators and the residents to the south. In the developer's agreement before you, I'll also go over some of the highlights from the developer's agreement. First and foremost, the developer's agreement must comply with the governor's directive concerning the data center audit process performed by the PUCT and the ERCOT, and they have to show that they've met all those standards prior to a certificate of occupancy. In the event that the developer is unable to acquire the necessary approvals from PUC or ERCOT, the responsible agency, then the developer will not be allowed to operate the data center at that location without a CO. The town manager may request the developer repurpose the building to another allowable use that's outlined in the plan development. This is the same with any development that we would have. If for some reason something happens in the middle of the development process and they either change their minds and change the use of that development, it would go back and to the developer to either build something different, or depending on how far along they are in the process, they would repurpose that building to another allowable use. Also in the developer's agreement, the developer may engage in staging and site preparation activities, but no grading activities will be allowed to commence until the grading and drainage plans have been approved by the town engineer. And they have to ensure that they were meeting all federal codes in the floodplains. The developer must construct a cooling system designed to achieve an annual water uses effectiveness of 0.25 liters per kilowatt hour in a long-term average, and manage the water consumption in compliance with state and federal laws. They also must comply with what they have told us they would do, and that's not take any water 85% of the year, and only take water from the town in the hottest 15% of the year here in Texas, and achieving that 54 million gallon average. The developer must provide a report within 180 days of the completion of construction that demonstrates compliance with the town's noise ordinances. Such report must also include A-weighted sound levels that are the other octaves and bands that are not easily heard by humans. So that's a lot of what we're talking about tonight, with the sound waves that are a little wider, a little longer, and that your normal DBAs are not picking up.
The low frequency.
That's correct. Yes, sir. The developer's agreement also, I will point out, does not exclude the developer from being held accountable for any noise ordinance violations. And just like any ordinance violation, we are allowed to cite the developer. Once we cite the developer a couple of times for the same purpose over and over again, then we work with our town attorney and we would get an injunction against them for doing any more business.
Okay, so let's be very clear on there. If any of these that we put in our development agreement are violated, we would go through a letter cycle.
Yes, sir.
We would start fining them, and then we would go get an injunction, shut this down.
That's correct.
If they violate anything in this development agreement.
That is correct.
Mr. Carroll, I do have a comment about that, but I'll wait till the end.
Okay. Yes, sir. All right, also in the developer's agreement, the developer will provide a one-time financial contribution to the town in the amount of $914,000 to upgrade our pump station. Right now, we have at our pump station a 16-inch line coming from the city of Fort Worth, where we have the rights to buy 10 million gallons a day from that line. But I'm afraid the piping and the valves in that pump station necked down when it was originally built, not allowing us to take on the full 10 million gallons. So the developer has agreed to give us this one-time cash donation to get that work completed so that we can accept the full 10 million gallons, which I will say the additional use is well above what they are going to be utilizing in this facility. The developer will ensure that the accessory structures utilize the same stone as the principal buildings, so that we're getting in some of the aesthetics now. All the mechanical equipment must be screened from view on all sides. The retaining walls, if necessary, must be made of stone, and screening walls for all mechanical equipment are required to be made of the same stone and at least 12 inches taller than the tallest mechanical equipment to ensure that they're hidden from view. In summary, the development agreement conforms with Section 102.316 provisions in its totality. It requires the compliance with the governor's directive, reflects the conditions imposed by the approved site plan through P&Z, and requires the development to meet all of our sound ordinances at full load while all generators and equipment are running. The town manager's office recommends approval of the development agreement as presented. You got the full agreement in your packet.
Wade, can you speak to our dark sky ordinance for the audience?
Can you say that again?
Can you speak to our dark sky ordinance?
Sure. The dark sky ordinance requires that all lighting is shielded and shines downward. No upward lighting is allowed in the town of Westlake. It's very noticeable when you see the height of our street lights in town. You notice that those things are under 12 feet tall, under 16 feet tall. It is maximum 16 feet tall, but most are under 12. And all lighting on homes and everything like that is not allowed to shine up or out. It must shine down.
So my understanding is that then this development will adhere to our dark sky ordinance. It will not create any additional lighting, and that this will also, I believe, be during the construction phase also. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, ma'am.
Michael?
With regard to section or paragraph 4.10, I would like to ask something of the developer. This is the section about noise and following noise ordinances and reporting, timely cooperate with the town in connection with the review of the report on noise. I would like to ask the developer to provide to us, the town, the real-time noise from that data center. In other words, to allow us to monitor rather than to count on the developer to tell us when they've gone over the ordinance, if it has. It would give us the opportunity to make sure that they're complying all the time, real time.
Sure. With that question, I'll invite Mr. Jeff Parsons from Powerhouse to come up and answer that question.
Not sure I quite understand the request. I believe what you're asking for is for you to do your own independent testing. Is that the request?
We want monitoring, I don't want to speak for you, Michael. We want monitoring devices in place that we can look at this at any point in time.
Yeah, I think what we've obligated to in the development agreement is at the completion of the project, as has been stated, that we would absolutely do an independent noise study and provide those findings. So that would include a testing over a period of time to establish that we're meeting the town ordinances. And that what's interesting also about the DBA and the octave, I'm glad Wade brought up the octave thing. Your town ordinance is actually pretty explicit that speaks to a lot of the concerns around the hums. The octave, if you're not aware, has a full 8 levels of criteria of the different bands, starting at very low frequency that is outside the human ear, and then encroaching in on very low frequencies that is of the human ear, up into a mid-range that is what we're talking about here, and it's measured in hertz, and then all the way up into bird chirping and up into the whistles that dogs can hear but we can't. And so that octave is a full range. Your ordinance goes beyond just a singular decibel dBA measurement and actually goes in further and speaks to criteria for each of these ranges. And that is something that we would also have to represent that we're in compliance with through independent testing and represent that the full range of that octave is complied with.
And I don't quite understand, but this includes the low frequency humming.
Absolutely, yes,
Okay,
sir.
that's critically important.
Yes, sir.
And Michael, again, I think you're talking about, we want real-time.
I mean, it'd be like security, it's like having a security camera and having a security company monitor it. We'd like to have the data that you're getting from the monitoring you're doing to know you're in compliance, so we can have that data instantly the same time you have it.
Yeah, so just to explain the process, as I understand it from our independent acoustical engineer, we would typically set up monitoring stations, okay, and it's going to be in multiple locations along even the property line to the south, and we would monitor that, and typically it's around 48 to 72 hours, and it would monitor for a full series because, you know, all the equipment, the traffic noise, those kinds of things are all relatively consistent. So yes, we can happy to, you know, share that real-time information. That real-time information is then going to inform the acoustical engineer to prepare a more detailed report to represent that it's in compliance with the city ordinance.
Hey, Michael, to add on to that, I had very large manufacturing facilities where noise was a big problem, explosive ordnance and a lot of stuff like that. We were able to go in and put in our own sound measuring systems and actually monitor them real time ourselves. We could monitor from VLF all the way up to above the very high frequency ranges as well. So it's something we can go, I think we should go look at and be able to do that. The bigger reason why is during the summer, the winds blow out of the south predominantly. It's going to be very, very quiet. It's when a cold front comes in from the north, you get the northern cold fronts, you get winds blowing at the south at 30 miles an hour. And for example, the freeway, if we were to measure the noise at my house in Westlake, not real close to the freeway, it probably exceeds some of the noise allowances for industrial just right there. And it's because of the winds. And that's something to take into consideration is when we get those big cold fronts coming through, that's where we ought to try to work with the owner and operator to understand that those are the days where it's going to make a difference. And 80% of the time the winds are out of the south in this part of North Texas.
So one of the ways that maybe we could look at doing that, I think right now it contemplates sort of doing one study at the completion after, I think it was 180 days. One way we could look at doing that and speaking with our acoustical engineers about sort of normal industry practice would be to do that same kind of study over the course of a full year after the completion of the project on a quarterly basis. So you get, to your point, spring, summer, fall, winter, and you get sort of that full range of what the different noises might be throughout the year.
Yeah.
So maybe that's something that we can do. It's just more common to do more of a concentrated study on a sort of quarterly basis than just a continuous.
I think that's good, but I think we need to go look at ourselves as a town, acoustic monitoring equipment, because there's other places within Westlake where there's noise being generated, and it'd be good to understand what residents are feeling, because the weather really is the biggest driver of impacted noise. When that north wind blows, everybody can hear the freeways all the way down through Vaquero, and it's loud. At night, at 11, 12 p.m., you can hear it. When the winds blow from the south, you don't hear a single thing. So I think the north winds are going to be the biggest problem for Marshall Ridge, and I think we have a responsibility to get the equipment and make sure that we measure it during the worst possible conditions, because if it's violating it on that one day, that 1 hour in the worst possible conditions, that's a violation. And
yeah, and I think the development agreement absolutely speaks to, you know, when a violation occurs and it's investigated and, you know, our obligation to comply.
And sir, you clearly understand, this data center goes in and you miss these noise ordinances, it's going to shut you down. We're going to get an
We
injunction.
absolutely understand that the obligations of the development agreement and our obligations towards the sound and the dark sky and everything that Wade just recapped in the development agreement.
Wade, I'd like to see if we can look into what Todd suggested, and that we have our own meter to be able to see what's going on.
we could set that up right on the boundary of the property, and you'll know exactly what's hitting that fence line every time.
If people are going to call us, we're going to have to figure out what the answer is, knowing immediately what it is it's data that we will need, rather than having to figure it out,
So this council
3 or 4
would
days
prefer that
later.
it be paid for by the town of Westlake then and monitored directly by the town of Westlake in order to ensure that that's done. Is that correct?
I guess, I mean, if the developer's not willing to do it on our behalf, I think that
Then
we need to do that.
Yes, sir. We'll move forward with that. We sure will.
But I do like the developer's suggestion of doing the quarterly monitoring as well and doing
Okay.
that at their expense.
That's a condition they could put on an approval if this is the council so chooses to do that.
Wade, the development agreement, this is one step of many left. We are waiting for, let's be very clear, we're waiting and we're going to abide by the governor's directive. And some press came out today that is going to take months to do this audit. So we think this development agreement is going to be part of that audit that they will request to see what safeguards we put in place. Is that true?
That is correct. I will also say that as we move forward through this process, right, the risk is completely on the developer. So if the developer starts down this path and cannot meet the state regulations along data centers, then it is not on the town of Westlake that we approved or disapproved this project, right? It is on the developer. So if he spends $25 million that he's already spent coming in here and getting the power that he needs to this place, and then they can't hook up to ERCOT, then that $25 million was spent by the developer. If he decides to move forward with the development itself and start building buildings, and they can't use it as a data center, then he's going to have to use it for another purpose, like a distribution center or something like that for that large of a building.
Hey, Wade, can you explain, if we approve the development agreement tonight, that in no way gives anybody a permit to actually start building anything?
That's correct.
Can you
We're a long
please
ways from
explain the
permit.
process of how we get from approving a development agreement, which is about infrastructure and the aesthetics, to someone actually being able to move forward and
Yes,
start?
sir. There is multiple plan reviews, civils being the biggest one, where we're going to have to look at everything from the grade of the property to the way watershed is handled to how well they utilize their own facility, and the buildings themselves are built to meet all of our codes and standards for water, for sewer, making sure that they meet TCEQ standards and TRA standards as well. So there's a lot of review that's going to have to occur before a permit can be issued. That's correct.
And just curious, how long do you think that that's going to take?
I'll pause that and ask my development director and deputy town manager.
Tough question.
Well, it could take a minimum of 60 to 90 days.
Minimum, 60 to
Minimum.
90 days?
Yes, sir.
But the governor's audit's going to take substantially longer.
Could
than
take
that,
substantially
based on
longer,
news
that's
today.
correct.
Any other questions from council? I'm going to ask our attorney, Matthew Ball, I think you have a statement, and then I'm going to talk to Mr. Ukera Councilman Ukera has a statement.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to reserve my comments for executive session prior to the consideration of any action.
We will not be going. Oh, you are asking for?
I am.
Oh, sorry. Okay, at this time, I don't have the language for executive session.
This time, Mayor and Council will convene a
Thank you.
confidential executive session pursuant to Section 551071 of the Texas Government Code to consult with and receive legal advice from the town attorney. No action will be taken in executive session. The time is now 6:02 PM.
During executive